Well, howdy everyone. Today I'm going to tie up a streamer pattern that I kind of created for catching smallies, and I call it the trash minnow. I call it the trash minnow because I made it from just miscellaneous odds and ends of material I had laying on the bench, and turns out it works really good, so now I kind of made a pattern out of it. So to start, I like to use Gamakatsu B10S pretty much for any streamer pattern I make, but I would typically tie this in a size 4 or a size 2, but I ran out. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to try to make it in a 1/0, which is enormous for how I typically would tie this. And I usually tie it in a 2 or a 4 size, since most places where I'm catching smallies, I can also catch crappie. So I like to keep my options open. But tying it in a 1/0 like this, it's probably going to be a bass fly. So to get started, we're going to start with some lead-free wire. I'm using a .02. I use a rather small diameter wire on this, partially because the fly is going to be covered in a mylar cord, so I don't want to add too much bulk. And also, when I'm fishing for smallies, I use a sinking line, so I don't really need it to sink itself that much. The line does a lot of the work, but anywho, we'll just start with 10 or so wraps. And they don't have to be perfect. 10 works great for number 4 or number 2 hook, but this is a 1/0, so we'll give it a few more. This is just kind of creating a base for the fly to give it some bulk and help it sink. Go ahead, squeeze those together and tighten them all down. For most of my bass flies or just streamer flies, I like to use an ultra thread. I'm using a 140. This just helps them from tearing apart and also adds a little bit of a base, or just add some bulk to the fly. So we'll come in just behind our lead wraps here. We'll go ahead and snip our tagging off. Then we'll just work over those lead wraps. Really don't have to go that crazy, just enough to hold that lead in place. Go ahead, give a pretty good back and forth with your thread so you make sure that lead holds in place. Then we'll go to the back of our fly just before the hook point. So part of this fly that makes it really interesting is this mylar cord. You can get this at a fly shop. This is, I think, 6mm, or you can buy it on Amazon for way cheaper, but I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. And I kind of just measure out, about 2.5 to 3 hook lengths, and I'll snip it off there. Now, if you got a side of this that's already falling apart, or unraveling, I guess, you can go ahead and put that down towards your thread, and we'll pinch that and catch it in. Give it a few wraps to keep it from spinning, and then we'll work our way forward, going over our lead, up toward our hook eye, but we don't really want to rush that hook eye too much, and then we'll go back. Once we got enough on there to keep it from moving around. It don't have to be pretty, it's all going to be kind of covered up. It's a bass fly. We want to be able to tie these fast without putting too much effort into them. So, like, the main material on this fly, good old craft store, craft fur. You can pick this up at a fly shop, or you can get it, at a craft store. I have some I got from Michael's. I have some I've gotten from Cabela's, but you just want craft fur that has pretty long fibers. Fibers that are like 4 or 5 inches long. Go ahead and I'll cut off a pencil diameter, but you'd probably end up losing like half of what you cut just because this stuff floats off to oblivion. And if you have anything staticky near you, it'll stick to. So when I tie this in, we got all these floofy butts here. I don't really want to tie those down, but I want it to stick out, about a hook length and a half past the hook. We'll go ahead and catch that in with a couple 3 wraps. I like to do one in front, just makes trimming these butts off easier. Go ahead and snip those off. Then with our thread, we'll just kind of cinch those butts down, go a little past. Kind of a general rule that I've made for these is where you finish your thread when you're tying those butts down is where you should start with your next one, your next clump of craft fur. And we'll go ahead and do another clump of this white. And don't have to be precise clumps, you just kind of get what you need. The more hair you have, the thicker the fly is. They don't really have to be that thick. They're supposed to imitate like a little minnow or a smolt or just. I'm tying this one in black or white and black, but another color I like to tie them in a lot is an olive green with a black middle piece, kind of looking like a lateral line on a smallmouth bass or a largie. But with this one, we're doing white, and then I'm going to take black after doing two clumps of that white. I'm going to do a black layer. And this, yeah, just imitates that lateral line on a fish. Go ahead and tie that in. Just pretty much a lot of repeating here, you know. And I've experimented with colors a little bit. My favorite color combination so far is a chartreuse and a yellow. That seems to be really productive for smallies, but I wouldn't say smallies are too picky, so any color combination ought to work if you know how to fish it right. So I got our lateral line in, and I kind of like using the off color as like the midpoint. So I'll do 2 clumps of my base color, 1 of whatever the lateral line color is, and then 2 more of that base color. So we'll do 2 more whites here. So after we get our top 2 clumps of our white craft fur tied in, we just kind of want to, once again, cover up those butts. And then we're going to have one additional step on this. Yeah. Just add a little flash, a little pizzazz. I got some black crystal flash. Whatever I used as my middle color is typically the same color I'll match for my crystal flash. But grab, 2 to 3 strands. Wrap the middles around your thread and then just tie them in on the top to begin with. And then I like to split them out like so. Just kind of pinch them so they're laying on either side of your craft fur. Go ahead. Bring your thread back. When I cut these off, I like them to be just shy of my furthest most fibers. And they'll be a little crazy, but we'll fix that here in the next step. So with the head, then we're just going to go ahead and lay a good base down. And as you can see, I got some hair fibers going every which way. It don't really matter. We're going to kind of push them all back in one more step here. But go ahead and leave a good base layer of thread. This is going to be your head. So whatever color you're using your thread, that's the color your head's going to be. All right. We've got a pretty good base of thread. We're just going to go ahead and whip finish. Being careful not to unravel our mylar, which takes some practice to figure out, but you just kind of want to, it's like doing the hook eye. You just want it to kind of go through, manipulate your thread as you need. And I just do 2 whip finishes with 3 turns each. That's just kind of my standard. All right, and we snip that off. Looks pretty goofy, don't it? But this last step is kind of cool, and what makes it unique. We're going to take this mylar and just kind of push it back over. Once we get to the point where we really don't want to push anymore, we're going to start unraveling it. Just get it all unraveled. And then just go ahead and pull it back. And it creates a nice needlefish kind of look to the fly. And I think that's what makes it kind of cool. It darts real fast in the water. It looks like a minnow. And our last step is putting on our eyes here. If you got a rotary, it makes it real nice. Get a little dab. So right where your marlar starts to unravel, that's where we want to put the eyes. And it'll also help hold the fly together and keep that mylar from unraveling. And I like to put my eyes right smack in the middle. Just do a glop of that Loctite. I'm using Living Eyes. Typically, I would use a size 7mm for either a size 2 or 4 hook, but since these are 1/0, I'm using these big boys. I don't actually know what size they are. I'm just gonna place those right on there. Alright, so the camera stopped recording there, but I went ahead, got both eyes put on. Then the next little thing that we did is in between these two eyes, you want to put some thick UV resin. And this is going to hold the eyes together. So I do it on the top, and I'll spin my vise upside down and kind of let it wobble back and forth to give it a nice round shape. And then I'll repeat that for the bottom. But there it is. That is the trash minnow. It works fantastic for smallies. We might have some photos at the end of this to prove its effectiveness, but it's a great pattern. And again, I typically tie this in a size 2 or a size 4. 1/0 just seems a little bit ridiculous, but I imagine it'll work just fine too. And it's probably a very versatile fly for other species. So far, I've only caught smallies and crappie with it, but there you go. And just thank you for watching the channel. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you want to see more fly tying videos or fishing how-tos, go ahead and give us a subscribe. If you want to see something specific, or you have comments or questions, drop us a comment below. And as always, just get outside and find out. Thank you.